Alright, so today we're doing a Gotham Knights review. So if Callisto Protocol is the worst great game, then I'd say Gotham Knights is the best bad game. Gotham Knights is perhaps unfairly, perhaps not by choice, having to try to restart Batman games after but the Arkham series ended. It is ironically kind of like Batman's sidekicks trying to pick up after Batman, although WB Montreal didn't quite see the day here so cleanly. The combat in this game is not near as good as in Arkham. You don't snap to enemies like in Arkham, which isn't inherently bad, but it's rough here. It just doesn't feel great. I do like how they put an emphasis on mixed range combat, where like X is melee and Y is ranged. There's also like differences on per character on whether range or melee is better. It does more damage. In general, it's good that the characters play similar, but not the same. There's things like Reddit being better with ranged in combat, and Robin being better with stealth, or Batgirl having good health upgrades, or Nightwing being good general all around stuff. And that really works with making the characters feel different, but still similar enough though you don't have to learn a bunch of different mechanics. There's also a decent grab move. You can throw enemies out of a grab, and you can't throw them off skyscrapers, but you can throw them off pretty high rooftops where they're certainly not dead. That's fun. Also, Reddit has a move where you can attach a concussive bomb and shoot it after you throw a guy into enemies, which is fun. You have special power moves they can use once you've done a certain amount of damage. They're pretty fun. They're sort of like the ones in AC Odyssey, which is one of the better parts of that game. The game's use of health packs is pretty poorly done. You can run out way too easily and then have to go grind for more, or even do things intentionally die to let your health reset instead of waste health pack. The stuff in this game is very mediocre. It feels like the type of afterthought stuff you see in other games. You're never highly encouraged to do stealth. In general, it's very disappointing coming off the Arkham games, which had some pretty good stuff. The bosses in this game aren't particularly good. The main thing is that they're big hit sponges, and the fights go on way too long, which makes their movesets feel really repetitive. Overall, the bosses are pretty disappointing, considering that in WB Montreal's Arkham Origins, they had some pretty good boss fights. It's one of the things that actually kind of did better than the rest of the Arkham series. The acquirable skills are fairly good, and they feel unique to each character. The gear system's a very typically bad gear system. It's just making the numbers go up every hour or so, and the only meaningful decisions to make about gear is about what type of elemental damage or defense you want. There's a bit of a leveling problem where you can too often run into enemies that are too easy or too hard for you. There's the bat cycle. It feels good to drive. The drifting feels real good. In certain situations, it can be a bit clunky to maneuver, but it's mostly fine. You can do races, which are fun, but it's kind of weird that they sort of try to sell them as upbeat. They have these colorful checkpoints, and there's this upbeat techno music, and the characters are yeah, woo, this is doing this the Nightwing way. It's yeah, but it's still Gotham, and you're driving past muggings, and it's sort of the Spider-Man 2 raindrops are falling on your head scene.
Doing it the Nightwing way.
There's also some cinematic gameplay sections involving the bike, and The Clayface side quests are pretty good. Kind of unfortunately, there's a point where each character unlocks a faster form of travel, and the bike pretty much becomes irrelevant. It's quite annoying how to unlock that faster form of travel for each character, you have to do 10 side missions each, and that adds up to 40 side missions. Batgirl has the Cape Glide, like in Arkham, but it doesn't play quite as good here. Nightwing has the Power Glider, which is like the Cape Glide, except you can go up without momentum, which makes it inherently better, which is kind of dumb and imbalanced. Robin can teleport, which is useful and interesting, but it doesn't play very excitingly. People make fun of how Red Hood's supernatural jump looks like a fart jump. It also plays like a fart. You're constantly losing momentum and you're slowly going downward the entire time. They just should have said F it and gave them all capes, and they all have Cape Glide. There's also races for the faster travel. Nightwings and Batgirls are good, and Robin and Red Hoods aren't good. There are okay puzzles. They brought back the evidence linking mechanic from the Telltale Batman games. I like how they reinforce the detective element of the Bat family, but it either ends up being a lot of reading or just gets in check. There's also some sort of walk around and find clues sections, and the clues are kind of hard to see, which is annoying. Even if you're like looking right at it, you don't necessarily get the scan if it's not like dead center. The side missions are generally decent, but formulaic, with little story. However, there are these terrible drone scanning missions where you have to stare at the sky looking for drones, and sometimes you have to wait for them to land a scan. It's very bad. On top of that, you're highly encouraged to do them all because they unlock fast travel points. There are also these car chase side missions that looked cool, but for some reason have a really low chance of spawning, so I didn't get to play one. The story side quests are good, and they're pretty much like the main missions. The co-op is good, and it feels like the way the game was supposed to be played. A lot of the time, I feel like when people say that, it's exaggerated. But here I feel the combat's at least twice as good in co-op. The story is relatively good. It's very character focused. And the characters are mostly good representation of the Bat family characters we know. I say mostly because Red Hood's pretty different in this version. He's not really an anti-hero, he's just a regular hero but angry. The performances in this game are generally good, but the guy playing Batman threw me off. Like, when I first heard him, like, you're not Batman. And now it really stings more with Kevin Conroy being dead. I didn't really realize the importance of his performance. He truly encapsulated the role and set the standard for the character. The tone of this game is a lot lighter than the Arkham series, and somewhat goofy at times. I personally don't like it as much, but a lighter toned Batman game isn't inherently wrong. The dialogue isn't too greatly written. Also really miss like the great common enemy banter from the guys in Arkham. Although they do have one good line here from the common enemies, is like, if you beat all of them up by one, they'll be like, I don't like my odds, and like keep attacking anyway. One thing is that the story assumes you know the general Batman timeline, which I'm fine with, but may turn some people off, I don't know. I think it's an interesting timeline setting where it's right after Batman, but it's moving toward Batman Beyond. We see things like Fox Tekka, the Freaks, and the Powers family. There's more specific things I want to get into. One thing is the Commissioner Gordon dies like a couple years before the story, and in that time the GCPD goes back to the full Chicago level of corruption, Leadership can change things a lot, but it kind of looks like Gordon didn't make that big a difference in the end. In this way, I get they're trying to go with some year one style stuff for some subplots, but in doing it this way, you kind of disparage a good character doing so. Probably mostly unintentionally, though. Another thing that kind of bothered me is that the Court of Owls isn't very intimidating. From what I've seen of them, they're always supposed to be one of Batman's greater foes, but it kind of feels like you're just fighting them like anyone else. And they're also undercut by another bad villain faction that comes into the story. One thing that's kind of dumb about the way the story is told sometimes is they have these places in the world, usually in the hub world, where you can go up and hit a button and a cutscene will play. I get not wanting to bog down the player of cutscenes or walk and talks, but doing this one seems silly to press button to have story. The visual aesthetics, especially for the environments, are far below the Arkham series. Even Arkham Origins, which had the worst visual of the series, had better aesthetics, especially when it came to places like the hotel. It's perhaps unfair because the aesthetics in this game look fine, sometimes even good, and they have this nice colored lighting for the areas. But being both set in Gotham, there's a lot of similar places, and you're that was 10 times better in Arkham when you see something similar. Most of the costumes are fairly good, but unfortunately the gear system makes you change them out constantly, so you can't really get attached. They should have just picked one and stuck with it for each character. I do like how you can change parts of the costume aesthetically, like the boots or the gloves. It makes it feel a bit more custom. Overall, this game doesn't quite live up to Rocksteady's games or even Arkham Origins. But also, how could it in a way, this with such big standards. Yet the Arkham games are big, epic movies. This is sort of more like a TV show. It's like a better TV show that doesn't get canceled after 3 seasons. Probably like that Gotham Knights TV show will. That has nothing to do with the games, by the way. This game isn't particularly good, but I like it. It's very playable, and I'm giving it an 8.21. Now I'm going to get into one little spoiler. So I was sort of going into this thinking that the setup of Batman's dead is going to be oh, he's not really dead and it was just planned all along. But they did stick to their guns with that, even though they had him come back for a bit. So I'm glad they sort of stuck it out. It's more different. Overall, it's a decent game. Thank you to anyone who likes, comments, or subscribes. And this isn't just an engagement call. I don't have too many people that I can talk about video games with. So if you guys have something to say about this game or other games, or feel free to say that in the comments. Also, recommendations of what you want to see on the channel covered video game wise is good, so please do that. That's about it. Thank you to anyone that likes, comments, or subscribes. That's it.